I am really excited to be talking about this movie, and that, of course, is The Monkey, which just released on February 21st. I know this is one that a lot of horror fans have really been looking forward to, so I'm excited to share some of my thoughts on it with you all. Part of the reason that we've all been really excited for it is because it has an absolutely stacked bill, and by that I mean it is written and directed by Osgood Perkins, based on a Stephen King short story, produced by James Wan, and produced and released by Neon. So it has a lot of things going for it. This movie stars Theo James, and Tatiana Maslany, as well as some surprising appearances from people that I was excited to see, such as Elijah Wood and Adam Scott. It also has an Osgood Perkins cameo role in it, which is fun. So just a quick little Osgood Perkins rant. I have seen all of his horror movies, including The Black Coat's Daughter, I Am the Pretty Thing That Lives in the House, and the Gretel and Hansel movie. I also saw Longlegs last year. We were all really excited about that one. It was one of my most anticipated movies for 2024. And I think because of how much pressure I put on it for myself personally, it fell a little flat for me. In the weeks leading up to, or months, I guess, leading up to Longlegs, I had seen the short teasers that were released every few weeks, and they were the only thing that I saw leading up to the movie. I kind of personally refused to watch any of the trailers. I loved the teasers so much. They were just a very particular type of spooky that I really enjoy. And the vibe that I got for the movie from the teasers was more like analog horror, maybe like even Skinamarink-esque. I'll talk about Skinamarink later in one of my videos. It's one of my favorite sort of controversial favorite horror movies. But Longlegs really wasn't that in the end. It was much more of a movie, I guess. And because of how much I put into what I thought it was going to be, I ended up being a little disappointed with what it ended up being. And I don't know how I would feel about the movie had I seen the trailer coming into it. And I'm wondering if it would be sort of the experience that I had with The Monkey, because I didn't ignore trailers this time. I watched the trailers. And so going into it, I knew more of what I was going into, which I think kind of failed me with Longlegs, not having seen the trailer before going into it. My thing with Osgood Perkins movies is they have so many elements of horror movies that I love. There's always really good cinematography, really good atmosphere, and it has all the puzzle pieces, but for some reason I just leave wanting something more. So I had some trepidations going in, but I still trust him enough to keep seeing what he puts out, and I'm really glad I saw this one in theaters. So talking about recipe, and this is where I like to read the IMDb plot synopsis for the movies. So for this one, it is: when twin brothers Bill and Hal find their father's old monkey toy in the attic, a series of gruesome deaths start. The siblings decide to throw the toy away and move on with their lives, growing apart over the years. So this gives us a pretty good introduction to what we should expect when going into the movie. IMDb lists this as a horror, and that's the only genre listed on the page. So exciting, yes, yay for me. I do love blends of genres, but when it's just horror, that really tends to be more of what I'm looking for. So this movie is split into two separate timelines. We first follow Bill and Hal as children in 1999, and then again 25 years later. And of course, the thing we all know about the movie is that it's a cursed object movie. So we have the cursed object, and we follow these two characters and see how it sort of dismantles their lives. It is a Stephen King adaptation, so of course it has to be set in Maine. There's a few separate locations, but primarily we interact with the characters in their hometown. So talking about flavor, because this is a Stephen King adaptation, we get a lot of Stephen King-esque themes. So we see things like coming of age, daddy issues, a generational curse that may or may not represent alcoholism, single moms raising boys, that sort of thing. We're definitely in a generational trauma family like drama year for horror, it seems like. We're getting a lot of that kind of stuff. I think absurdity may be another theme in this movie. It's just really over the top and kind of goofy in its execution. Another major theme is just the concept of death. So even the tagline for the movie being "everyone dies and that's fucked up." But also throughout the movie, there's a lot of lines about how everyone dies and that's just part of life. So kind of taking these themes of death and the fact that everyone dies and kind of mixing that with like overarching sense of absurdity really is the tone for this movie. I think in the past too, Osgood Perkins has done a lot of very self-serious movies, a lot of heavy kind of movies, and this one is definitely not that. It's much sillier and goofier, which I think is a good direction for him. I did appreciate that just thematically for this movie. So, talking about execution, there was a lot that I loved about the execution of this movie. Again, one of my favorite things about Osgood Perkins is that he knows how to make a beautiful movie. The cinematography, the set design, the character design, it's all very pleasant to look at. The 90s aesthetic in the very beginning of the movie, the first half of the movie, is just perfect. There's a lot of really good set pieces. I saw a lot of like hand crocheted blankets. There was a burger phone at one point, just like fun little set pieces that really brought us in to the time, and also just like, fun things to look at throughout all the scenes. Whenever it is a Stephen King adaptation, we typically get child actors, which can be really hit or miss. The child acting in this movie is fine. It is a little cringe for me personally at times, um, but that's just a personal thing. I have a hard time watching kids in horror movies in general. It's tough to get one that an actor, a child actor, who really sells it, I think. The acting is great. Theo James is great, especially seeing him as two separate characters. He really pulled that off and really sold the two different mindsets of the twin brothers. Tatiana Maslany is a criminally underrated and underutilized actor. She's great. For anyone who's seen her in Orphan Black, she's just incredible. And I was really excited to see her because I didn't realize that she was in this either. I really appreciated the excessive, sort of absurd nature of the movie. I do think that the comedy element is new for Osgood Perkins, and so some of the dialogue is really comedy heavy, almost excessively, where it doesn't need to be, we don't need to get as many jokes as we got, and some of them just felt like they were bopping you over the head with what, just really, yeah, like maybe a little more polished on the comedy writing. If he continues to do like kind of comedic movies, I think that will sort of work itself out. But I did kind of get a little irritable about like, just it was just a joke every 5 seconds for a little bit, and I really felt like the movie was funny enough on its own without like constant barrage of jokes. For instance, the editing itself is really funny, just like abrupt cuts in comedic places. So I think that really could have carried the comedic element. And I could have done with just like half the amount of jokes and then just allowing the editing and sort of like the general moviness to take account for that. So talking about the monkey itself, which is probably my favorite part of the movie, just as a set piece, I'm mentally making a new list in my head of like favorite horror movie set pieces because that thing was so cool. I really hope that some more information comes out about the monkey and how they sort of built it and how much of it was practical, how much of it was CGI, because it was really just like a well designed, well built thing. um, I think horror movie toys, like cursed toys, can be kind of silly looking. Um, but this one wasn't. I mean, it was silly in the sort of it naturally, but it didn't look goofy or out of place. Like it was such a excellently designed and executed haunted object within the world of this movie. It really fit. So whoever's the prop master really needs a raise. That was such a good prop. I'd also like to know if there were different versions of the prop. Throughout the movie, it has different sort of emotions to it, if that makes sense. In some scenes, it looks a lot more sinister, a lot more angry, but in a very subtle way. And then in the scenes where it's not particularly menacing, it just looks like regular, normal. And there's just like so much depth to its facial like expressions and emotions, even though it doesn't move or talk or anything. Just really well designed overall. So talking about the frights, the kills in this movie were fantastic. As someone who constantly is asking for things to be grosser and more over the top, I think this movie really delivered. All of the kills were really unique and like laugh out loud funny, some of them, just like absolutely absurd and over the top, which was great. I really enjoyed that. As soon as one was done, I was looking forward to the next one, and that really just carried me throughout the whole movie. It was great. In terms of being scary, I don't know if I felt that it was um, scary because it was so enjoyable. It was hard to, there weren't moments where I felt like the traditional Osgood Perkins thing, like the overarching feeling of dread. You don't really have time to feel that in this movie because it's very fast paced and everything is so kind of silly. So it wasn't scary in that sense. It was very gory though, like definitely bloody. And there were some parts that I think would be challenging for people who are maybe a little bit more squeamish. It was good though. I think it was appropriately bloody and spooky and fun. There aren't a lot of jump scares in this movie, and a lot of what is a jump scare in the movie is more comedic than it is tense, if that makes sense. Like you get a very instantaneous, like, startle, but then like a laugh, a reason to like giggle about it afterwards. So it doesn't have that like tension release in the same way. So, moving on to spoilers. So, this is typically the part of the movie where I tell you the movie, the the review, where I tell you that if you don't want any spoilers, go watch the movie, come back, and tell me in the comments what you thought about it. So, we'll go on to spoilers in the next bit. So, not too much to spoil in this movie. Most of the information that you need, you get in the trailer and in the first half of the movie. So, there's not too much surprise, I think, that happens. I really did think that there was going to be sort of your quintessential investigation sequence whenever you have like a cursed object or like an overarching curse that comes out of nowhere. You typically get these scenes where people are trying to figure out the origin of the thing and why the thing does what it does. And you didn't have that really at all in this movie. They kind of just accepted that this thing was going to be there and that they weren't going to be able to get rid of it. So the first half of the movie, we follow Bill and Hal. We are briefly introduced to their dad, who was the one who introduced the monkey into their life, who was played by Adam Scott. And you get that fun scene in the pawn shop that's in the trailer. But he doesn't appear after that, and it's sort of said that he disappeared, so we don't know what happened to him. He may have died via the monkey, or he may have just like up and left to get away from it. So we follow Bill and Hal as they discover the monkey in their father's belongings, and they wind it up for the first time. And I don't know if this is a plot hole, but the very first time they wind it up, it takes a while for it to eventually kill its first victim, whereas later in the movie, it's almost instantaneous. So I don't know if it was just like out of commission for a while and needed a warm up or what, but it definitely took a lot longer for this first kill. So the first victim of the monkey is the boy's babysitter, Annie Wilkes, which is a Misery reference. It's a Stephen King adaptation, you gotta have it. And she is killed in a hibachi related decapitation accident. So So then, after being bullied at school, Hal returns home and winds the monkey up again, which results in the death of the boy's mom from like an explosive brain hemorrhage aneurysm. And this happens right in front of Bill. And this kill is, or this death in the movie is not as inventive, I guess, or not as silly as some of the other ones, just because of it being their mom and sort of being more of like a heavy emotional death. So then the boys go to live with their aunt and uncle. Their uncle is played by Osgood Perkins. And they wind up the toy again. Sorry, I'm not supposed to call it a toy. They wind up the monkey again, which results in the death of the uncle, trampled by horses in a sleeping bag. And after that, the boys decide to seal it in a well, or they throw it down a well, hoping that that'll sort of end the curse, the string of deaths. And it does. So then after this, we cut to 25 years later, where we follow Hal in his current life. And Hal is the narrator throughout the film. And he tells us that he hasn't spoken to Bill in many years. They've become estranged. And so we follow him as he goes to spend his annual 1 week visit with his son, who is stepfathered by Elijah Wood. And so they go together to something that I don't think exists, but it seems like a horror themed amusement park, which maybe we should build that. That would be really neat. So, as they're on this kind of little road trip together, him and his son, he gets a call from Bill, and we are told that him and Bill haven't spoken in 5 years and haven't seen each other in 10. But Bill tells Hal that their aunt had died in a freak accident, which is new to Hal, but we saw it in a very glorious sequence of events resulting in her death. Part of that was in the trailer, but it is a lot more fun in the movie. There's a lot more that happens. So Bill essentially tells Hal that he needs to go back to the house and find the monkey because it's back and it's going to start murdering people again. And so the big grand reveal of the movie is that we go back briefly to 1999, and we're shown that Bill went back into the well after they put the monkey in there, but it was gone. And it just left like the little key that sticks in its back. And that Bill had spent his entire life looking for it so that he could get it back and sort of use it, I guess, to kill Hal, in revenge for Hal killing their mom, because he had figured that one out. So he has gone completely just off all things, out of his mind. He's set up in this like abandoned hotel. And this is like such a good set from the movie, but it's just an abandoned hotel with all these TVs that are displaying like monkeys doing stuff, and you can really just see that his descent into madness. He has a glorious mullet, and he's sort of outfitted his childhood funeral suit to be like wearable so that I don't know, it's a goofy look. He looks like I said, the costume design is great in this movie. So Bill gets the monkey back and is trying to use it to kill Hal. And so they all end up at his big fortress of monkey. And turns out you can't use the monkey to do anything you want. It just does what it wants to do. So after killing most of the town with the monkey, Bill himself is killed by a big Rube Goldberg that he's built in his fortress. And so the final sequence of the movie is just Hal and Petey, his son, driving through the remains of the town. Most people are dead. Some people are just actively on fire. and sort of discussing the fate of the monkey, which is essentially that they're just going to keep it with them, and keep an eye on it and make sure that nobody turns it. So, um, again, it's, there was no investigation. We don't know where it came from or why it is the way it is. But now it's sort of their burden to hold on to indefinitely, and they just sort of have to live with it. I was a little confused and put off, I guess, by the final shot of the like ghostly figure on the horse. I know that it blends in. They mentioned a pale horse and that thing a handful of times throughout the movie. But it's like it's very CGI, and it's just kind of random in the, I don't know. It's kind of stuck out to me and not in a great way. It just feels really random and not, it doesn't explain anything. Like it doesn't, I guess it's supposed to be like represent death maybe, and sort of tie into the theme of the movie in that sense. It just felt kind of unnecessary. I was like, why did we put that in there? Anyway, um, and if you did get this far in the review and you're going to go see it in theaters, make sure you stick around post credits, because there is a post credit scene, not from the monkey, but I think it looks like it's a teaser for Osgood Perkins' next movie, which cool. I mean, he seems to be getting himself to a pretty prolific point at this point. So that's great. I mean, after this one, I'll definitely make sure to keep catching his projects. I think he's got a lot of cool ideas, and it has a very unique directorial style. So I'll definitely keep an eye out for whatever he's doing next. So overall, I would give this movie a 4.5 out of 5. It is not perfect, but it's pretty close. I had a lot of fun with it. It's definitely my favorite Osgood Perkins movie. But like I said, I don't know. There's something missing from the other ones, but I think this one really had a lot that I just really enjoyed. I really loved. So if you are thinking about going to see it, definitely do. I think it's definitely a fun theater watch. So yeah, I'd definitely recommend. So thank you for tuning in. Please like and subscribe for more Sugar and Frights content. I'm hoping to keep up my momentum and just keep perfecting what I'm working on. And I love being in this space with y'all and talking about scary movies. So please come back, and until next time.